1945. Ramree Island. The mangroves dense, suffocating. Waterlogged mud sucking at boots. A battlefield swallowed by nature. The air thick with humidity. The scent of salt decay and something unidentifiable. Whispers of men who would never return. Reports surfaced of soldiers disappearing. Patrols vanishing without a trace. Footprints leading to water. Bodies never recovered. The official narrative blamed crocodiles. Yet survivors whispered of something far more sinister. Unseen. Calculating. Patient. Stalking. The mangroves seemed alive at night. Roots twisting like grasping fingers. Shadows stretching unnaturally. Moonlight glinting off water reflecting shapes that should not exist. Every step taken with caution. Hearts pounding. Senses strained to the limit. Screams echoed across tidal channels. Sharp, abrupt. Swallowed almost immediately by reeds and mud. Men dragged silently into water. Comrades frozen in terror. Unable to help. Only ripples and disturbed reeds marking the horror. Whispers filled the air. Not carried by wind. Voices calling names. Separating the brave from the cautious. Those who responded never returned. The survivors' eyes haunted. Faces pale. Hands shaking. A terror impossible to describe. Soldiers reported shadows moving independently. Figures gliding along patrol routes. Eyes reflecting torchlight. Appearing, vanishing, reappearing. Following men like predators. The mangroves themselves seeming to shift. Alive. Calculating. Patient. Diaries recovered later told of dusk approaching. Strange shapes moving among the reeds. Whispers that were neither human nor animal. Footsteps echoing where none should be. Men vanishing while their comrades slept. The ink trembling from the writer's fear. The air carried sounds that made no sense. Splashes in channels. Cries distorted by distance. Chanting low and guttural. Synchronizing with shadow movements. Soldiers frozen. Unable to comprehend what was hunting them. Horror embedding in memory. Glowing eyes hovered above water. Circling patrols. Vanishing under torchlight. Shadows bending across mud flats. Men shouting. Running. Falling. Dragged silently back. Panic overwhelming reason. The mangroves alive. Predatory. Eternal. Medical logs revealed injuries inconsistent with crocodiles. Scratches and bruises in deliberate patterns. Survivors corroborated the presence of unseen hands, pressure on chests, whispers repeating fears, terror orchestrated by an unseen predator. Officers' reports noted patrols ending abruptly, men missing, bodies never recovered, lines of soldiers disrupted, communications failing, official reports blaming natural hazards. Yet survivors swore of something intelligent. Stalking. Waiting. Choosing victims methodically. One survivor wrote, "I saw my comrades taken, pulled into mud and water, something moving faster than thought, eyes glinting, not human. I ran. The island followed. Whispers in the wind. I could feel them behind me. The terror etched into memory. Ink trembling. Impossible to dismiss. Even photographs hinted at the inexplicable. Blurred figures between trees. Distorted silhouettes on tidal flats. Soldiers frozen mid-step. Water disturbed where no one stood. The essence of dread captured. Proof of unseen movement. The island predatory. Eternal. Local folklore mirrored fact. Watchers of the tide. Spirits claiming the unprepared. Dragging men silently. Stories passed from generation to generation. Merging with soldiers' accounts. Reality and legend blending. Creating a living nightmare. Fact and myth inseparable. And so the story begins. Ramree Island, a battlefield claimed not only by war, but by something unseen, patient, eternal. Shadows stalking whispers, calling men vanishing, and the lingering question that haunts all who hear this tale: what truly claimed the soldiers that night? Ramree Island, 1945, a remote outpost off the coast of Burma, where the war had shifted from open battlefields to dense, suffocating mangroves, where every footstep could be the last, and every shadow might conceal death. Allied soldiers advanced cautiously, boots sinking into the sucking mud, rifles clutched tightly, eyes darting at every movement, ears straining to catch the faintest rustle, every breeze carrying the scent of salt decay and something unidentifiable, a presence older than the war itself. The Japanese defenders were expert at blending with the environment, hiding along twisted canals behind knotted roots in the canopy of mangroves, patrols moving silently, traps concealed beneath the mud or shallow water. Any misstep could mean sudden death, or worse, vanishing without a trace, leaving only ripples on the tide. Nights were alive with terror, the jungle singing with unseen life, the croak of frogs, the hum of insects, the distant cries of birds, and sometimes human screams, sharp, brief, then swallowed by the mangroves. Stories of men dragged away while their companions slept, never to return. Whispers carried by the humid wind, echoes that settled in the minds of those awake. Officers recorded their fears with restrained words. Unexpected casualties, singular disappearances, fate unknown. Lines of men sent on reconnaissance, ending abruptly in mud or water. Patrols returning incomplete. Bodies never recovered. A strange, haunting pattern repeating night after night, as if the island itself were selecting its victims. The climate was another adversary. Torrential monsoon rains flooding the lowlands, tides shifting unpredictably, trapping men in quick mud or dragging them into hidden channels. Heat suffocating the lungs, sweat mixing with blood, fatigue eating at resolve, mosquitoes and disease spreading silently, the jungle testing the limits of human endurance, both body and mind. Names were listed in official rosters. Hundreds of men, young and old, seasoned and green, each with dreams, families, futures. Yet many would vanish, leaving only empty entries in logs. Men who had marched confidently in the daylight, now whispers in the mud and reeds, shadows in the water. Nothing tangible left behind. Maps sketched in haste revealed the peril. Winding tidal channels like serpents, mangrove forests so dense that sunlight rarely reached the muddy floor. Patrols lost quickly, disoriented voices carrying only short distances. The jungle, a labyrinth designed to disorient, confuse, consume. Soldiers moving like ghosts, unaware of eyes watching from above or below. Unseen forces tracking each step. Locals told their stories quietly, speaking of the tides as alive, of whispers in the reeds, of glowing eyes in the dark, of shapes moving that no animal could produce, of nights so heavy with dread that men's hearts failed before their bodies, warnings dismissed at first as superstition, only to be remembered with terror and trembling long after the battle. Even Japanese records hint at something beyond comprehension. Entries noting strange occurrences, men disappearing mysteriously, unease among troops. Official words carefully chosen, yet betraying anxiety. Men accounted for on paper, missing in reality. Reports sanitized, as if the island itself demanded secrecy, claiming its own toll in silence and fear. The very mud seemed alive, pulling at boots reaching with hidden fingers, the water hiding unseen currents, the reeds closing like jaws around ankles, footsteps swallowed without sound, the mangroves murmuring, something moving between trees, watching, calculating, waiting for the next man to stumble, to scream, to vanish. Military reports from Ramree Island recorded losses that defied simple explanation. Hundreds missing. Bodies never found. Patrols sent into the mangroves returning with fewer men than they left with. Official language restrained. Unexpected casualties and men unaccounted for repeated in terse lines. Yet diaries hint at more disturbing truths. One officer's journal noted, "We lost 10 men in one night. Footprints leading into water. Nothing returned. Fate unknown. Singular disappearance." The words linger on the page. A silent witness to terror. A record of chaos and fear. Maps marked patrol routes abruptly ending in the tidal flats. Lines of footprints trailing to the water's edge, then stopping as if the earth had swallowed the men whole. Bodies never recovered. Weapons and personal effects missing. The official explanation blaming crocodiles. Yet survivors swore it was something else, something intelligent, something that waited and watched. Eyewitness testimonies paint a picture more horrifying than the reports. Men separated from their units, swallowed by reeds and mud, others dragged into the water by unseen forces. Screams echoing briefly before fading, patrols vanishing silently. And those who returned spoke of shadows moving independently of the wind, of eyes glinting in darkness, of voices calling men into the mangroves. Diaries recovered later tell of nights filled with dread. One entry reads, "I heard them at dusk, whispers not human, shapes moving in the water, men disappearing while we slept. I trembled and prayed. They come closer with every tide." The fear etched into the handwriting, the trembling evident on the page, a direct testament to the terror experienced firsthand. Medical logs from field hospitals show men returning injured, but not from combat. Wounds consistent with animal attacks. Yet descriptions by soldiers included scratches, bruises, and bites unlike any crocodile could inflict. Patterns suggesting stalking ambush, a predator not fully understood. Commanders' letters to higher headquarters hint at mounting frustration. Units under strength, morale collapsing. The island itself becoming an enemy, a relentless, unpredictable force. Letters censored or sanitized. Reports claiming natural hazards and enemy resistance while failing to mention the disappearances that no one could explain. Men counted, then uncounted. The official narrative at odds with reality. Even captured Japanese documents reveal unease. Entries noting strange occurrences and men disappearing mysteriously. Fear of something beyond comprehension. Troops reporting sounds in the reeds, shadows moving along patrol routes, and men vanishing without struggle. The language formal, yet betraying anxiety and disbelief. A shared terror on both sides of the conflict. Photographs taken during operations show soldiers wading through ankle-deep mud, eyes scanning the mangroves, faces tense with worry. Yet the images capture only the surface, not the unseen lurking beneath, not the silent hunters that stalked the men. Evidence of the island's hidden lethality, hidden between frames, waiting for those who dared to read between the lines. Local interviews decades later corroborate the reports. Fishermen and villagers recall screams carried on the tide. Men disappearing from sight while crossing tidal flats. Ripples forming where no creature disturbed the water. Accounts of shadowy figures moving independently. Stories repeated in hushed voices, never fully explained, blending reality with folklore. Testimony meeting myth. The cumulative record suggests a pattern. Men vanish systematically, patrols incomplete, bodies never recovered, eyewitnesses traumatized, journals full of cryptic notes, medical logs with unexplained injuries, commanders' reports censored, the facts pointing to something more than nature or simple enemy action. a combination of environmental hazard, human error, and perhaps something unknown, something predatory, something that defied explanation. Long before the war, Ramree Island carried whispers among local villagers, stories of the island's shadow, an unseen entity that moved silently through the mangroves, felt more than seen, a presence older than memory, patient, relentless, and observing every footstep of those who dared enter. Fishermen recounted tides that shifted with intent, currents that dragged men into channels where no crocodile could reach, voices carried on humid wind, distorted cries echoing across the water, the lost calling the living into darkness, warning or lure, no one could tell. Soldiers exhausted from days of marching and skirmishes reported shapes moving between the trees, silhouettes not aligned with the wind, shadows gliding along patrol routes, eyes reflecting moonlight in unnatural patterns, figures appearing to stalk, vanish, then reappear, as if the mangroves themselves had learned to move, to hunt, to remember. Diaries recovered years later revealed hands trembling over inked pages. One soldier wrote, "At dusk, figures moved among the reeds, not human, not animal, calling my men from their posts. I dared not follow, I dared not sleep. They watch." The fear etched in letters, ink smudged by sweat and shaking hands, proof of terror no report could convey. Local lore spoke of spirits dragging men into tidal channels, soldiers vanishing while crossing shallow water, only ripples remaining, whispers of screams carried to the mainland, some claiming that the island's mangroves themselves shifted, rearranging to conceal the missing, a labyrinth alive with malevolence. Some survivors swore they heard chanting at night, low guttural sounds, ancient, unintelligible, synchronized with movement in shadows, soldiers frozen, unable to flee, dragged into reeds or water. The chorus of whispers drowning out reason, embedding terror into minds, rewriting perception of the world. Glowing eyes were reported, low, eerie lights above water, circling soldiers, disappearing when torches approached, nerves fraying. Some claimed the island itself had become sentient, a conscious predator, collecting men methodically, without haste, without remorse. Footprints appeared and vanished, mud disturbed where no one could stand, soldiers' belongings abandoned, weapons half buried, clothing ripped, injuries inconsistent with crocodile attacks. Some diaries noting scratches and bruises in patterns too precise to be natural, proof of stalking, of hunting, of intent. Whispers became voices. Voices became commands, calling men away from the unit, separating the cautious from the brave. Those who responded never returned, the wind carrying only echoes, the moon casting elongated silhouettes, bending perception, reality bleeding into nightmare. Villagers' stories corroborated survivors' tales, whispers on the tide, footsteps in the reeds, shapes glimpsed peripherally, disappearing when looked at directly, repeated over generations. Folklore blending seamlessly with historical accounts, creating a legend alive with memory, fear, and something almost tangible. The mangroves themselves seemed alive, roots twisting like grasping fingers, water reflecting shadows that did not belong, men feeling cold touches on their backs, hairs standing on end, unseen hands brushing hair and clothing, heavy pressure on chests, the oppressive certainty that something unseen was present, following, watching, waiting, punishing those who dared tread the mud, the reeds, the water. Some accounts describe nights filled with low chanting, sounds rising from deep within the island, synchronized with shadows' movements, patterns that soldiers instinctively recognized, yet beyond understanding, men paralyzed, pulled along without struggle, echoes of whispers drowning all reason, terror embedding into memory, indistinguishable from dream. Even photographs hint at the horror. Blurred shadows, distorted silhouettes, soldiers frozen mid-step, mud and reeds disturbed, the air heavy, capturing more than light, capturing the essence of dread. The island itself appearing as a predator, patient, eternal, marking those who dared to enter its domain. A living legend. Ramree Island. The mangroves thick and suffocating, water lapping quietly at the roots, the cries of missing men carried by wind and tide. The island itself alive with memory, a presence felt rather than seen, patient, deliberate, observing every step soldiers took, waiting. Across the Pacific, other islands held secrets just as dark. Peleliu, Guadalcanal, Bougainville. Patrols disappearing into dense jungle or tidal flats. Men never returning. Footprints leading to nowhere. The air thick with humidity and fear, echoing the horrors of Ramree. Soldiers stationed on these islands described shadows moving independently of wind and light. Figures gliding along patrol routes, eyes reflecting torchlight, appearing, vanishing, reappearing, as if the terrain itself had learned to hunt, teaching fear, marking its presence. Whispers traveled at night, soft, unintelligible, calling men from their posts, separating the cautious from the reckless. Those who obeyed the whispers never returned. The wind carrying only echoes of screams, moonlight casting elongated silhouettes, reality bending into nightmare. Local folklore mirrored these events. Watchers of the tide spirits of the mangroves, ancient patient claiming the unprepared, dragging men into channels, leaving only disturbed mud and trampled reeds. Stories passed down generations, merging with soldiers' accounts, creating living legend, fact and myth indistinguishable. Survivors' diaries described movements in the shadows, eyes glowing in darkness, chanting voices rising from mangroves, men frozen, paralyzed, dragged along without struggle, terror embedding into memory, echoing motifs across islands, decades and cultures, unbroken. Photographs captured blurred figures between trees, distorted silhouettes on tidal flats, soldiers frozen mid-step, water disturbed where no one stood, the camera capturing more than light, the essence of dread itself. Islands appearing predatory, calculating, eternal. Researchers later identified patterns: isolated terrain, mangroves, tidal flats, repeated disappearances, incomplete patrols, unexplained injuries, eyewitness accounts of intelligent predation, folklore reinforcing fact, a chilling symbiosis, motif appearing again and again, haunting memory. The bridge became undeniable. Ramree is not alone. Shadows, whispers, vanished men, part of a recurring motif of haunted islands during war. Environment conspiring with something unseen, amplifying fear, exploiting weakness, punishing unprepared soldiers, pattern crossing oceans, cultures, and decades. Soldiers' letters recalled faint cries in the mangroves, shapes moving where none should, chilling wind carrying voices, fog thickening unnaturally, shadows stretching longer than light allowed, repeated sequences, the same motif manifesting with minor variations, always claiming victims. Night patrols told similar stories. Men straying from unit, dragged silently into tidal channels, cries muffled, bodies never recovered. Soldiers haunted by dreams of mangroves, moving water, shifting like fingers. Recurring motif embedded in mind, body, and memory. Even the most experienced soldiers reported disorientation. Time felt distorted. Shadows appearing faster than thought. Whispers guiding men away from safety. Moonlight glinting off objects that weren't there. Environment and legend blending, creating a persistent, almost sentient terror. Local villagers recalled tides behaving strangely, channels widening or narrowing without explanation, voices on the water, lights glimmering in darkness, patterns repeated across generations, warnings ignored by soldiers, resulting in the same haunting sequence of vanishings, motif reinforced by reality. Captured enemy reports hinted at similar events, patrols failing to return, soldiers reporting shadows moving independently, men vanishing silently, formal language betraying anxiety, fear mirrored across sides, an island claiming its own victims, motif undeniable. And so the story extended, from individual terror at Ramree to a universal motif. Haunted islands in wartime, soldiers disappearing, shadows stalking with intent, whispers calling, the environment itself conspiring, lines between folklore and fact blurring, leaving only the chilling truth. Wherever isolation, fear, and the unknown converge, men vanish, shadows watch, the islands remember. The night descended over Ramree Island, darkness swallowing the mangroves, water still but alive, carrying the echoes of men who had vanished, the air heavy with humidity, fear, and something unseen, a presence felt in the chest, in the spine, patient, deliberate, watching every footstep. Screams shattered the silence, sharp, frantic, men dragged into the reeds, boots sucked into mud, bodies swallowed by channels, comrades frozen, unable to intervene. The sounds fading, leaving only disturbed mud and the lingering scent of salt and blood. Footprints led to water, stopping abruptly, personal effects scattered, helmets half buried, rifles abandoned, the signs of struggle without an assailant. Whispers among survivors hinting at shapes moving, intelligent, stalking, waiting, unseen yet undeniably present. Diaries described chaos in unbearable detail. I heard them before I saw them. Shadows taller than men, eyes glowing, calling names, dragging voices into water, ink smudged, hands shaking, the terror palpable, impossible to dismiss, alive on the page. Chants rose from deep in the mangroves, guttural ancient, synchronized with shadows' movements, men frozen, paralyzed, dragged along without resistance, echoes of whispers drowning reason, terror embedding itself permanently into memory. Glowing eyes hovered above water, circling patrols, moving independently of men, vanishing when illuminated, shadows bending unnaturally, moonlight casting elongated silhouettes, men shouting, running, falling, pulled silently back, mangroves alive, predatory, patient. Medical logs revealed injuries inconsistent with crocodile attacks, scratches, bruises, punctures in deliberate patterns. Survivors corroborated, describing unseen hands brushing hair and clothing, pressure on chests, whispers repeating fears, the island orchestrating terror. Command reports noted patrols ending abruptly, men missing, bodies never recovered, communications failing, officers bewildered, logs sanitized, official narrative natural hazards. Yet reality was far worse. Shadows stalking, men vanishing without struggle, impossible to explain. A soldier wrote, I saw comrades pulled into mud and water, shapes moving faster than thought, eyes glinting, not human. I ran. The island followed, whispers in wind. I could feel them behind me, the account chilling, terror etched into memory. Photographs hinted at the inexplicable. Blurred figures, distorted silhouettes on tidal flats, soldiers frozen mid-step, water disturbed where none stood. Cameras capturing more than light, the essence of dread itself. Islands predatory, eternal. Even decades later, locals spoke of ripples in water, footsteps in reeds, shapes gliding along patrol routes, glowing eyes, whispers carried by tides. The island remembering, waiting, patient, a predator without body, claiming men methodically. The pattern repeated, vanishings, whispers, shadows chanting, footprints stopping suddenly, personal effects abandoned, injuries deliberate. Eyewitness testimony confirming encounters with entities beyond explanation, folklore and fact merging, suspense reaching fever pitch, letters detail mental toll, hallucinations blending with reality, men seeing vanished companions, hearing voices calling names, water rising unnaturally, shadows stretching, senses dulled by fear, rational thought collapsing, the island itself orchestrating terror. Some soldiers claimed figures walking upright through water, dragging men silently, shapes emerging and vanishing, moving with intelligence beyond human comprehension. The ultimate predator, mangroves alive, calculating, consuming, preserving memory of the lost. The mangroves seemed sentient, roots twisting, water reflecting impossible shapes, pressure on chests, hands brushing clothing, whispers repeating fears, the air thick, almost visible, unseen forces manipulating soldiers' movements, controlling fate, orchestrating disappearance. Night patrols vanished, screams cut short, mud swallowing boots, water claiming bodies, soldiers dragged silently into channels, hallucinations blending with reality, moonlight glinting off nothing, shapes moving with intent, the environment conspiring with something unseen, horror peaking, glowing eyes and phosphorescent lights hovered, circling men, moving faster than perception, shadows stretching unnaturally, soldiers frozen, cries fading, panic mounting, logic collapsing, terror embedding in body and mind, a predator intelligent and eternal. Diaries spoke of companions vanishing, voices calling names, shapes gliding silently, water and mud claiming men, chanting rising from mangroves, terror embedding into memory, recurring motif of stalking, unseen predator exploiting every weakness, leaving survivors scarred, haunted. Reports of environmental hazards, crocodiles, quick mud tidal shifts, heat disease exhaustion. Yet disappearances remained unexplained, suggesting an intelligence beyond nature, predatory patient precise, exploiting fear, fatigue, the island itself participating in horror. And so the climax reached its peak, soldiers disappearing in waves, shadows stalking, whispers becoming screams, mud and water claiming the unaware, cries fading, diaries, reports, folklore, photographs converging, revealing the full horror of Ramree Island, where nature, war, and the unknown collide, leaving terror, mystery, and questions no one living could answer. Ramree Island, the mangroves silent once more, yet the air heavy with memory, whispers of men who vanished, shadows that never left, footsteps never recovered. The island alive with its own recollection, patient, deliberate, observing. The mud, the reeds, the channels, all bear witness. Footprints fading, personal effects decaying. The terror remains, embedded in diaries, reports, photographs, in folklore, in memory, waiting to be remembered again. Local villagers speak quietly, stories passed from father to son, of the island's shadow, of glowing eyes above the water, of chanting rising from mangroves, warnings ignored by soldiers, yet repeated endlessly, a living legend. Even today, researchers stepping onto Ramree report unease, a heaviness in the air, whispers on the tide, shadows moving just beyond vision, mud clutching at boots, a chill creeping along the spine, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Some claim that on nights with full moon, ripples form where no wind blows, shapes moving silently, cries faintly echoing across channels, mangroves alive, orchestrating terror, the island remembering each lost soul, patiently, eternally. Footprints appear and vanish, personal effects scattered, water disturbed without cause, shadows bending unnaturally, men frozen mid-step, whispers carrying names, the mangroves themselves shaping the environment, a predator intelligent and unseen. Survivors' diaries recount hallucinations merging with reality, visions of comrades who vanished, voices calling names, shapes moving in water and mud, terror embedding in body and mind, the horror replaying endlessly, impossible to forget. Local folklore intertwines with fact, watchers of the tide, spirits claiming the unprepared, dragging men silently, stories repeated across generations, the island asserting dominance, its memory eternal, teaching fear, patience, precision. The mangroves themselves seem alive, roots twisting, water reflecting impossible shapes, pressure on chests, hands brushing clothing, whispers repeating fears, the air thick and almost visible, unseen forces controlling movements, orchestrating disappearance. Even modern soldiers and researchers report similar sensations. Mud-sucking boots, unseen presences brushing past, whispers in the wind, shadows stalking the periphery. The chilling certainty that the island observes, records each intrusion, remembers each step. Letters describe panic, hallucinations, men paralyzed, visions merging with memory, water rising unnaturally, shadows stretching, cries fading, moonlight glinting off nothing, fear embedding itself into perception, body and mind failing under pressure. Some claim figures walking upright through water, glowing eyes, dragging men silently, shapes emerging and vanishing, moving with intelligence beyond human comprehension, the ultimate predator, patient, eternal. The mangroves alive, consuming, calculating. Night patrols vanished. Screams cut abruptly. Mud and water claiming bodies. Hallucinations blending with reality. Moonlight glinting on non-existent figures. Shadows stretching unnaturally. Soldiers frozen. Terror peaking. Rational thought collapsing. The island orchestrating horror. Photographs hint at the inexplicable. Blurred shadows. Distorted silhouettes on tidal flats. Soldiers frozen mid-step. Water disturbed with no cause. The camera capturing the essence of dread. The island predatory. Eternal. Unyielding. The line between fact and folklore blurs. Diaries, reports, eyewitness accounts, photographs, and legends all converge. The haunting certainty that something beyond understanding, patient, intelligent, eternal, claims the unprepared, a predator without body, yet all-powerful. Even those who survived carry the trauma. Visions replay endlessly. Shadows in peripheral vision. Voices calling names. Mud and water claiming comrades. Terror embedded permanently. Memories that cannot be erased. The island's legacy unbroken. The motif extends beyond Ramree. Other isolated islands, remote battlefields. Soldiers vanish. Shadows stalk. Whispers call. The environment conspires with unseen forces. Fear amplified. The unknown exploiting weakness. A universal lesson in terror. And so the story ends. Or perhaps it never ends. Ramree Island remains, silent, patient, eternal. A reminder of what is unseen, of shadows that wait, of legends that live on, of men who vanished, and of questions that remain unanswered. You have witnessed another file from classified chronicles, fact and folklore intertwined, terror surviving decades, shadows watching silently, patiently, eternally, and a warning: some islands keep their secrets, some shadows never leave. Step carefully, if you dare.